All right, time to talk again.
We made it through. Now it's time to talk.
Yeah, exactly. This could be a therapy session more than just kind of you and I talking about what's going on. And I just got off a meeting today all day on a California Society of CPAs board that I'm on, and I mean, universally, all the firms that were on that call were talking about how this was just the toughest tax season that they've ever experienced. I know it was for us.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt, we were struggling for sure. And it's funny when you think about that compared to last year. I think everybody would have said last year was the toughest, but it was stretched out so long you never got a break. This seemed much more under pressure and for a
Yeah,
long period of time.
and I also think that they made some better, more fair changes last year by moving the estimated tax payment dates. And California, I mean, I could go on a rant, but the way they treated us and tax preparers by dragging their feet and not providing, we've talked about this, so
Yeah.
we don't need to go over the details, but so I understand it, what happened, it all makes sense, but they really treated taxpayers and tax preparers unfairly in not providing information along the way. And then the way, and not relief for being late on things.
So I think, I mean, you haven't said it, but so you're talking about the PPP loan.
Yeah.
The deductions related to PPP loan that California, we knew right away, like in January from IRS or maybe even December, that we could deduct the payroll expenses even though the debt was forgiven. But California waited and waited, actually produced something that we thought we could use, and then waited another month and a half and then announced their final decision like a week before the individual deadline for us, which caused our S Corp clients to say, hey, let's start filing.
And not only released that information a week before the deadline, they reversed what they told us 30 days prior.
Right.
They told us it's going to be $150,000 exemption. And then they completely changed what they were going to do long after the filing deadline for many of the businesses that had the PPP loan. And if I can just finish my rant.
Go for it.
I'm usually not a ranter, but really, if you think back to the beginning, when people were advised, we've got these PPP loans, and they were advised it's not going to be taxable to you. That was the pretense under which people applied for those loans.
Right.
And then later on in the year, there came up this, well, the IRS said, well, you're not going to be able to deduct those expenses. And Congress said, no. All along, our intention was that this wouldn't be taxable. So we're going to fix this. And California, they also said at the beginning, oh yeah, we'll comply. This won't be taxable. But they didn't change that, at least not in the same way. They still, basically in the end taxed this in a way that's different than they said they would at the very beginning of all this. Now, it's still free money and you're still better off getting it, and you could just turn the money back in if you don't want to be taxed on it. I get all that. It just,
right.
It was a mess,
Yeah, it was. And yeah, it took them forever to make the decision. And I understand, I think that there was that problem with, the new Biden law came out, and then California was really confused on, does this reduce the amount that we get back? And right. So, yeah, it's funny that they didn't start that ball rolling earlier, I guess, like IRS did, but.
Yeah. So anyways, that as well as just stretching out tax season that long just made it really brutal, and so we gave our staff Tuesday off, the day after the deadline, as a kind of mental health recoup day. And then this Friday is our normal, we always have April 16th as a holiday for our staff. So we're taking tomorrow off as well.
Yeah.
And it's still not enough to recover from that long stretching out of tax season,
Well, and I think we talked about this too. I think we've worked every Saturday and most Sundays since the middle of January.
Mm-hmm.
And now you turn around and go, oh, wow, it's almost June.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, speaking of it being almost June, I mean, that's a reminder to our clients that June 15th, if you've got quarterly estimated tax payments, June 15th is coming up, and there's a payment due June 15th.
It's funny. I wonder why they do that. Maybe is it a fiscal year thing that they do it June 15th? Because you just did it in April 15th. You'd think that the quarter would end June 30th and you'd pay it June 15th, but it must be like the fiscal year end thing, kind of like how California did that one time 30, 40, 0, 30% thing to try
Yeah,
to
that's a
weaken.
good question. I don't know the origins of that. I was going to say, well, the April 15th is probably just giving you an extra day, or an extra month, so it coincides with the deadline. But the reality is, it really should logically be April 15th, July 15th, October 15th, and January 15th, which
Right.
it already is. That's true. I don't know the history of that.
Yeah.
Anyways, one thing I thought we could talk a little bit about is, uh, you know, the President Biden has a proposal out there to fund $80 billion into the IRS to kind of beef up the IRS. And so there's a lot of implications, both just from you know, how the IRS operates and how well it can serve its taxpayers, as well as beefing up audits and the potential for increased audits. I mean, that was another thing in this Cal CPA meeting I was in today. There was a lot of talk about just the IRS being unable to return calls and get things processed. And somebody shared a link to a survey that they're sending out to tax practitioners, and one of the questions was, something along the lines of, do you feel that the IRS is a modern, cutting edge, responsive agency for the future, and I mean, it got a funny laughing reaction in the virtual room, that's for sure. But anyways, this proposal's out there, and I saw one article that kind of detailed a little bit about it that had some interesting things about it. Between 2010 and 2020, so basically in the last 10 years, the IRS has lost more than 33,000 employees.
Wow.
Frankly, I know that this probably sounds silly, but I didn't necessarily realize there were more than 33,000 employees in the first place.
Yeah, that is. I wonder how many there are in total.
Yeah. And so anyway, and I think a lot of this is funding cuts that have gone against, have pulled funding from the IRS, basically. The IRS audited fewer than 2 out of every 100 taxpayers earning more than $1 million in 2020. While at the same time, since 2012, the number of millionaires has nearly doubled. So there's been a 72% drop in audits of millionaires, going from almost 41,000 in 2012 to a little bit over 11,000 in 2020.
Wow.
So clearly the focus of this funding will be to fund audits of high income earners. It's interesting, we've talked about this. Biden's proposals target taxpayers earning over $400,000.
Right.
And it sounds like that threshold would also be part of this increased audit scrutiny.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, a couple other notes here. A recent study from the IRS Taxpayer Advocate Office, which, by the way, is a really useful, and I think, I don't know, just it's a great organization. It's loosely connected with the IRS, but they don't answer to the IRS.
Right.
They have integration with the IRS. I use them maybe once a year where I feel like I'm getting nothing from the IRS and my client is being treated unfairly.
And I think you should probably mention, I mean, they only step in in certain situations and stuff. You can't just like, hey, I've got a problem, I'm going to call the advocate's office. You have to, I'm going to say, exhaust all your other resources, but you kind of have to be at almost like this standoff position before they kind of get involved.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's worth noting. So as CPAs, the IRS has a dedicated department that for tax practitioners. I mean, there's a phone number that's called the tax practitioner hotline.
There
And
must
I
be at
do.
least 3 people that work there.
I mean, I hate to bag on them because I get some real good service from them. It's hit and miss. There are times where you just get somebody with an attitude and it's really difficult. But I feel privileged to have that number as a tax practitioner to get higher level service than I think is on the 800 number for all taxpayers. But you're right. Once we go through that channel, then the taxpayer's advocate is the next channel for us.
Yeah.
I mean, as an example, I have 2 clients who filed returns last year with big refunds coming back, and they had to file their returns by paper. Give me one sec here. And their returns still haven't been processed. It's just been sitting there. And the amount of money that's coming back to these taxpayers, it's just unfair.
Yeah.
And so I am next week, I'm going to try and open up a case with Taxpayers Advocate on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice if they use some of that $80 billion to, upgrade their technology. I mean, it just, in today's day and age with Zoom and with, everybody able to work from home, there's got to be some upgrades that they could do to allow logins and portals and ability for us to verify simple information. I wish that would be super helpful. That would be helpful to them too.
Yeah. I do think though that if that investment could be made in the technology side,
right,
to make their auditing process more targeted and strategic, I think it would be great.
Right? Well, I think they do that, don't they? I mean, from what you hear, that there's a scoring system that's done, and I mean, at least in the class that I took, that there is an evaluation that's done. I've heard.
Yeah, I just think that with today's, for instance, with AI and things like that, I don't think they're using that kind of stuff. They should contact IBM Watson. No, but really, I do think that, this is a trend in our industry, is this data analytics. And I don't think they're applying that kind of analysis that the private sector is. And that would be helpful. We talked a few minutes ago about, well, you would think that an investment in the audit process would result in revenues to the government from audits.
Yeah.
But I said to you, I think that's true up to a point, right? There's the money for the government to get back in unreported income or improperly reported tax returns is probably along the fringes. So, that investment probably has a really good return at first, but as you get deeper into just kind of the regular tax returns, there's probably not a big return on investment.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something they could do to, crank through the process a little bit quicker. I mean, that seems to be, it just takes so long to open and close an audit, it feels like, as opposed to it should be just a super quick, like one day done almost kind of situation.
Yeah, I agree. My experience is that, well, first off, thankfully, is very little.
Yeah.
So we just don't get a lot of audits. But there tend to be 3 different types of audits or examinations that I get involved in. One is a notice when there's something that the IRS got a 1099 or something that didn't get reported on the tax return, a mismatch.
Yep.
That's just in the mail. It's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
The second is correspondence audits, where I've got a client that has a business, a small business, so it's not something reported on a W-2 or a 1099. But the audit process is they're basically say, hey, fill out this questionnaire and mail us support for this, and this on your
Right.
Schedule C. That's a great process as far as I'm concerned.
Why? But that takes a long time, though, I feel like, too. Like, if I've had those types of audits that start in December and they're not done till June because of the fact that it takes forever to correspond. If we could just pick up the phone, or if I could email them the documents and, okay, let's have a meeting. I'll show you the documents. I'll walk you through them. Boom, close. I think that those could be much more efficient.
I see what you're saying. So the turnaround time as opposed to the time that you have to invest.
Well, I think, we all know, like, when we pick up and put down projects, it just takes forever to get reassociated. So I'm assuming that those agents, it's the exact same way. If they're waiting 6 weeks to get my stuff and then they're waiting for my response another 6 weeks later, it's going to be inefficient. That's all.
Yeah. That's very true. The other kind of audit that I've gone through is, I was trying to Google here the name of it, and I'm not going to remember it. But these statistical audits where it's not about the particular taxpayer, it's about getting the results of the audit for their purposes of their studies.
Right.
Those are the audits it's a massive undertaking. There's an interview. They want to look at every transaction,
Right.
Those are such a hassle.
Yeah. Those are, like you said, they want to look at everything. They're not trying to target any specific issue. Have those all been individuals that you've done those for? Or is there some businesses?
No, I've done businesses
for that type.
Yeah. Although I do find generally if it's not an individual, if it's an entity, they're going through that whole process no matter what. The other ones that we talked about, correspondence audits, that tends to be, in my experience, small businesses reported on a 1040 Schedule C. I don't know if that's just my experience or if that's how they do it. Anyways, it's a fun process. I mean, I think it's worth noting that for the most part, our work papers, we retain in our work papers support for everything that's reported on the tax return. And I have to say that's for the most part. But we retain our work papers for the statute of limitation period. And if the information comes from our clients, we at least have that in the work papers so that if we need to, we can get that to the client to trace their source of the information. So I'm never nervous, about audits. We've got the information there. It's just a process to go through, and I think it's a natural part of the, voluntary reporting system that we have,
Yeah. Cool.
Anyways, you have any audit stories to share?
Met some interesting people.
That is true. That's one thing to note too, is a lot of times the audit process it's a bit of a roll of the dice of who you get, people who, they just appreciate when a taxpayer has done their best to comply and report, and then others who are like looking to make their career and catch you on every single little technicality.
Yeah.
It's tough to be at the whim of the person who's has the authority of the law behind them You always have the appeal.
Yeah, I was going to say that that's the nice thing. I mean, and maybe that's why it takes so long, because you do, at least as a taxpayer, you have those rights to appeal. You have the rights to go to court as well, and to have independent review. I think that they do, like you said, if you get a bad auditor or someone that is trying to look at every technicality, they try to give you as many opportunities to negotiate and to support that before you go to tax court, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. They're just looking for settlement.
Yeah.
I went through one appeal up in LA, up at the federal court building up in downtown LA. And that was a good experience. The person I spoke with he wanted to hear the issue, and he was looking to settle it. The other thing I went through, I've done a couple of office audits where you just kind of show up and sit at a desk with an auditor with your work papers open.
Okay.
Those are great. I think when you get in front of them and they see the kind of records we have and everything, they're like, oh, okay, well, you're good.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that you probably resolved all the issues in one day. Right. And that's what I'm saying, is if there was more of that.
The other thing I was going to talk about is, I think you'll remember this, but I think it was in the early 2000s, late 1990s.
Okay.
There was congressional hearings about IRS kind of coming down on taxpayers. And as a result, they had these tax days. I forget what they were called. Tax resolution days.
Mm-hmm.
You remember what they were called?
No, I don't.
Anyways, you could just show up without an appointment at an IRS office and say, I've got this issue, I want to resolve it. And they were like, it was like December 31st at the used car lot. They were like looking to close cases, just bring us any offer. It was like Cal Worthington. And I went to the Ziggurat building, that big IRS building down in Laguna Niguel.
Which they're selling, I think.
Yeah, I think they're going to tear it down, I think. Yeah. And got somebody, they just assign you to somebody who looks it up on the computer and looks at what you have, and they dealt with the issue and closed the case. That was great.
Yeah, that would be so nice.
Yeah, I realize I'm talking a lot, but that Ziggurat building is interesting. It'd be funny to look at the history of that at some point, but walking through that was like, science fiction movie showing the underground bunker at Area 51. It was like hallways that were big, wide, linoleum covered hallways that went for a mile long. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough talk about IRS audits, I guess.
Yeah. All
right. So we got a nice, relaxing 3-day weekend this weekend. You doing anything fun?
Trying to maybe go down to San Diego, see a Mariners Padres game. Hopefully we'll get no hit again for the third time.
Set the record. I can't laugh too hard.
Huh?
I can't laugh too hard at your Mariners.
Well, the funny thing about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, has there ever been a team that's been no hit twice in one season? And I don't know if you know this or not, but there's been 3 teams this year that have been no hit twice.
No way.
The Cleveland Indians have been no hit twice, and the Rangers, as of yesterday, got no hit twice. Because the Yankees just no hit him. Kluber no hit him last night.
Okay, so, wait a minute. So I think I saw that there are 6 no hitters so far. Maybe there's 7 after last night.
I think there's 7 now, because there's another team that's only been no hit once. Everybody else, I think, has been no hit twice.
So then that means that 6 of the no hitters are in the American League.
Yeah.
And 1 is in the National League.
Yeah, and I think the next one is the record. Like the 8th no hitter You have to go back to like 1899 to get 8 no-hitters in a season.
So isn't that interesting? I'm sure that this is an anomaly, but you can't pull this. But isn't it interesting that there are 6 no-hitters in the American League that has the designated hitter? You would
Yeah.
think they have better hitters in the they less of a chance of a no-hitter. But it just goes to show what you said when we were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
The reason for all these no-hitters is every batter's getting up there and they don't care if they strike out. All they're doing is swinging for home runs these days.
Yeah, because it's all about the statistics basically bear out that you're better off going for a home run than you are a single.
Right. And in the National League, where you've got a pitcher hitting who's kind of a dead spot in the lineup, they're probably more inclined to, at least one time around the lineup, play a little bit of small ball or try and go station to station.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it is ironic, like you said, that it's all been in the American League. That is really interesting.
Huh. Well, that would be fun to go do that. I mean, that Petco Park in San Diego is such a great stadium. Great food there. You'd have a great time.
Yeah. What about you?
We have dinner reservations Saturday night in LA. And outside of that, no plans.
Those are the best kind.
Yeah. Planning to just do a little work around the house, maybe change the tires out on my Vespa.
There you go. Fun.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye.